Welcome to the Haunted Hangover podcast. I'm Louie, and I'm joined by, once again, my boy, Grimey.
Becoming a regular.
You are a regular. That's it. There's no becoming Grimey. That's it. You're like, you know what you are? You're like a gang member, but you're part of two gangs.
Oh, I'm a gang member. Hell yeah.
You're like, it's like the Bloods and Crips, but instead it's the Leftover Pizza podcast and the Haunted Hangover podcast in your case. So
that's dope, man.
If you had to pick a color for Leftover Pizza, a gang color, what would it be?
Oh man, it's got to be two. It's pink, neon pink, and neon green.
So those would be your gang colors for the Leftover Pizza.
Those gang colors, man. Represent.
That's what you would be representing. That would be your flag. The Haunted Hangover color would obviously be orange because a lot of our shit is orange. I'm wearing a lot of orange today, as you can see. But orange would be our gang color. So,
dope.
Grimey, you'd have three flags at this point, man. You'd have three because Leftover Pizza's got two colors. So
that's true. True.
You know what I mean? So you'd have the what did you say? The hot pink and blue?
Hot pink and neon green.
Neon green, sorry.
Yep.
And then you've got the orange, the bright ass Halloween orange representing Haunted Hangover. Listen, man, you're breaking barriers here, man. you're breaking the podcast gang war barrier here. Halloween podcast. Well, kind of, but nonetheless.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm talking shit here. I'm talking. Somehow I was able to take Halloween and podcasting and associate it with gang culture in some way. So, happy spooky season, everyone. But yes, it is the spooky season, Grimey, and we've been talking about doing this episode for a while. It's the first Haunted Hangover episode ever. Was Halloween memories. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. The first one. No shit.
The very first episode, Dave and I talked about, we thought it was fitting to talk about Halloween memories. And I believe him and I have done it twice. And, you start to run out of memories. You start to kind of you start to lose them. You repeat yourself, which I'm sure I've done here at the podcast several times. I've repeated myself countless times. And then I had Manny on, and I had Manny talk about some Halloween memories. And that got me thinking, that would be something I would want to, people like you who, are always, at this point, like we just joked, but you're basically a member of the Haunted Hangover crew at this point. And like Manny, who joined us earlier this year, it's fun to kind of get other people's Halloween memories instead of me kind of regurgitating the same kind of couple memories and repeating myself. I say, no, it's fun to have other people come on here and share their memories. And I've been trying to do that more with guests and obviously members of the Haunted Hangover crew, squad, just kind of having them share some. Maybe people that haven't in the past got a chance to share some. And you really haven't. I don't think I've ever asked you. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been like, Grimey. I think we've talked about, I think when you were first on, the very first time, we talked about, I usually got my go-to, what do you love about Halloween? What made you fall in love with the holiday? But I didn't really dabble in any memories. So in this episode, we thought it would be fun to do that. Talk some Grimey Halloween memories. And this is mostly going to be a Grimey heavy memory show, if I'm keeping it real here, because I'm all out. I'm shooting blanks right now, man. So.
Hell yeah. No problem here. This is the stuff that I like to do right here is talk about things that you don't necessarily need notes for. When you do shows like me and you do, and with your podcast, my podcast, it's very note heavy. It's very research heavy, and it's like
formulaic
this right here,
at times.
Absolutely, yeah.
Strict formula.
This is just two dudes shooting the shit, basically, and talking about shit that they really enjoyed as a kid or whatever
Spooky
back
shit.
then. Yeah, absolutely. And this is, in my opinion, this is what Leftover Pizza is all about too, is just like talking about old memories and stuff that affected us on a personal level and shaped the human being we are now. So yeah, perfectly fitting.
Exactly. You reminisce, and nostalgia obviously plays a part into what we both do. And what's more nostalgic than memories and talking from the heart? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep.
So Grimey, we're gonna just jump right in. We're not playing any games here. We're done with the gang shit. We're done with, with all that talk. And we're gonna just dive
Putting
into
it down for the colors.
Yeah, we're putting it down. We're gonna wave our flags, wave them high, wave them around our heads, and jump right into it. And we're gonna start with you. We're gonna start right with your memories and dive in. And I'm gonna be honest, for the listeners, I don't know what any of these memories are, so I'm listening to them. I'm hearing them for the first time, just like all of you. So, Grimey,
Just raw dogging it.
Raw dog. You know me. I love my innuendos. Shooting blanks and raw dogging. Monday Night Raw. One of my favorite programs. But yes, Grimey, take it away.
The moon rises and the night awakens. Happy Halloween.
So I have two very, very distinct memories that for whatever reason stuck with me, and I feel like they've effectively shaped the way I see the season, both from a very young age and this happened around the same time, no doubt. Like I'm almost certain they're like probably within the same 3 or 4 years span. So I'll start with this first one here. There's a common thing I noticed between people here in like what we're into, I guess, like Halloween, horror, or nostalgia for these two different things. There seems to be this like person who gets us into these things. For most of us, not everybody. Like for me, that would have been like my neighbor and my uncle at one point. Specifically my uncle though. My uncle Russ, really awesome dude. He's no longer with us. Tragic accident a long time ago. But certain things he did around the Halloween season really stuck with me, and I think that's why I view the season the way I do now. Our relationship probably wasn't like the most strongest or anything. Like we weren't hanging out at each other's houses every day or nothing, but like these things really left this everlasting impression on me, and it's enough for me to remember it now. So when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I remember going trick-or-treating over his house at one time, and he built this homemade casket. So like out of wood and everything. It's a really, really sturdy piece. It's a humongous piece too. He could fit his entire body into it. So, and I know how I'm picturing it right now, how it's like this really, really awesome piece. It was probably just like a really, really simple piece, but that's like the power of nostalgia. They kind of, when you think about it as a kid, it looks a lot bigger than what's actually there and a lot more serious. I'm sure it was just a real simple little thing that he put together, but nonetheless, he built a coffin, and he would have this coffin kind of like sitting on a table, and he would be laying in it, and he was dressed up as Dracula. He had like the widow's peak, the whole getup. I mean, he looked like Dracula jumped off of the screen from the Universal Monsters, like just spitting image of it. So what he would do is lay in this coffin very, very still. You wouldn't know if this was a prop or if it was a real person. So the trick-or-treater would walk into the house, into this like kind of mudroom-esque area, and he'd be laying in there. The lights would be all dim. I think he had like a red light or something. And they would come up to get candy, and he would just slowly rise up and do this like, like this whole like Dracula moan kind of thing, and just scare the shit out of kids. Like I remember, it worked on me. I was terrified. Like I bolted back out of the house. I had no idea what was happening. I just knew I needed to get the fuck out of there. But like, it just really stuck with me as a kid, and like seeing how fun it was to watch all the other kids go in there. Like my siblings went in there and the same thing happened. It just, I don't know, one of them things that's really, really cool. And I feel like we all have that one person who kind of got us there, I guess. Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, so it's funny. I had an uncle as well, no longer with us. I wouldn't say Halloween ever. I wouldn't say Halloween was ever his thing. Okay. He didn't really. So he did like horror. So horror was a big kind of deal with him. But he did like kind of, at a young age, when you start seeing, you start to get exposed to stuff that you're not supposed to at that age. So if you're like 6 years old and you're seeing a glow in the dark skeleton T-shirt. So I don't like my uncle, this uncle I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I remember it was a black T-shirt and it had skeletons all over it. And that's what they did. They glowed in the dark. And I remember that vividly being something really cool and I gravitated towards. And then obviously with him, you know, at the time he was living with my grandmother and I'd stay at my grandma's house a lot, obviously, because my mother was working and stuff and she dropped me off there. And he was the person that, and it sounds like this uncle of yours probably in the same boat. He would play stuff like The Exorcist when it was on TV. He'd be the guy that would control the remote control and put this shit on when I obviously wasn't supposed to be watching it. So I don't really correlate Halloween with him so much, but I do kind of associate like horror and just alternative weird shit with him. You know, I don't have any memories. Yeah, I don't have any memories like you do with this song. And by the way, I have some questions that pertain to your memory. We'll get to those. I'll get to those in a second. But this uncle was more the horror kind of guy and kind of science fiction and weird movies that I was exposed to at an early age and kind of some kind of subculture weird shit like graphic t-shirts with skeletons. And he was really into like techno music. And and some of that stuff back in the like early 90s had dark undertones and things like that and weird kind of samples from like Nightmare on Elm Street. And he would play this stuff. And I always kind of was like scared by it, but also intrigued. And obviously it molded me for the person I am today in a way. But I would associate, and I've said this on the show before, when it comes to Halloween, the biggest influences on me were my grandmother, she's no longer with us either, and my mother. My mother loves Halloween. I've said it on the show. Her birthday's the 30th of October. So like she's always loved Halloween. And as a kid, I've talked about my grandmother's party when I was this party that always stays with me in my memory when I was about 4 or 5 years old. So yeah, I have family members, not really an uncle, but I feel like everyone has that uncle. Everyone's got that uncle that just
it always seems to be the uncle too.
Yes,
I know Derek, he's got an uncle too that's like he's all out horror, video games, and like Halloween stuff. It's insane, man.
And to go back to your uncle, was he the younger sibling?
I don't think he was the youngest.
Interesting. Usually they're the younger.
Right, yeah. I'm honestly not certain.
You're
There's
not certain, okay.
like 7 or 8 of them.
Wow.
I haven't kept tabs on like that. Dude, yeah, huge. And this is my great uncle too, by the way. This is like, yeah, he's out there.
So this is your grandmother's brother, right? Is that what a great uncle is? Yeah, I've got a couple of those too that are still around. So to go back to the coffin. Now, in your description, I don't know if maybe I missed it. Was this just a wood coffin, or did he spray paint this coffin black or something?
It was spray paint. It was definitely painted black.
Okay, it was.
It was painted black.
So wow, so he actually had to put in some work in creating. All I'm picturing is like this splintery wood from like Home Depot or something, kind of nailed together. Again, like you said, you're looking at it from when you were a kid. Like obviously, you were scared, you were frightened by this image of him hiding and then popping up as Dracula. But I'm sure it wasn't the most comfortable place to lay in. I'm sure he got he had to pick out a splinter or two. That's why I was like, it's crazy that he built this thing, spray painted it, and was committed to laying in it. And that is the sign of someone that loves Halloween and loves to scare the shit out of children on Halloween. So that was the one thing I was like, I don't know if I missed it or not, if he had spray painted it or if it was, because it would be kind of funny if it wasn't spray paint. Like it would still work if it was just like this wood brown color coffin. But the fact that he took the time into actually painting it is amazing.
I remember it being painted for sure. I don't know whether he used like a acrylic paint or like what kind of paint, or if he sprayed it or what, but like it was a beautiful piece. I'm telling you, like I look at tutorials online all the time, and this is way back in the early 90s.
Zero YouTube
yeah
days.
So there's like nothing there telling him how to make this thing, but I mean he did it. He was good with his hands. He figured it out, and but he used it several years in a row.
What happened to it?
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I'm not really close with them family members much anymore, so I would have to like reach out to one of them and see. But speaking of which, his youngest son, I feel like he kind of passed the torch down then. He didn't use this. He kind of did his own scenario where he would like, they wrapped him up like a mummy and he would like sit in a chair like beside the door as you walked into this mudroom area, and he would hold the bag or this big like cauldron of candy or whatever, or this bowl of some sort. He would just sit there and wait, and kind of the similar thing. You wouldn't know if it was a person or like a prop.
Yeah.
So you'd walk up, and as you're like reaching into the candy, he would like grab your arm. Dude, it just extremely effective. Like kids weren't sure what to expect, and I mean it worked, you know.
Did you see pictures of him dressed up as a mummy? Have you seen like evidence of
Oh no, I got to experience full hand.
Wait. What what did he use to wrap himself up in? Like gauze?
I'm honestly, it looked like it would be like gauze or something. Yeah, just like a bunch of gauze wrapped up. It was awesome.
He definitely takes after his dad, because that's a commitment as well, to kind of wrap yourself up in gauze and just because as much as I love Halloween, and I'm curious if you're in the same boat, I don't see myself just sitting in a fake coffin or standing still on a porch scaring kids in the most uncomfortable positions ever. So that is commitment. Like I don't see myself ever doing that, even though I will totally give kids candy on Halloween and all that stuff, even though I'm never home. But you know, I'm always doing stuff that day. But it's the commitment that you love, man. Regardless of, you know, family member, uncle, cousin, grandmother, grandfather, whatever, father, mom, just the people that commit to stuff like that for hours. And you see it today, and it always warms my heart. You know, like even last year, I went trick-or-treating, and I might have said this on the show last year, and I'll mention it briefly again here because I don't think you know the story. But I went out with my nieces and nephew trick-or-treating, and there was this house, and this woman was dressed up as a ghost in character. And there must have been about 15 to 20 kids just, you know, around her, hounding her for candy. And she's in character as this witch with this fake nose and, children, yeah. And I was like, wow, this woman, like, you could tell nothing puts a bigger smile on my face, makes me happy than seeing someone else that isn't us. You know, like us, it's a little different because it's like our whole lives revolve around horror, Halloween, and stuff, totally. and things of that nature. But to see someone that's like an aunt or a mother or a sister,
just a normal everyday person
who still loves the holiday, and this one time a year, they can be like your uncle, a vampire, or like your cousin, technically, right? The mummy, or this woman, you know, as this witch last year that I saw randomly. And it's great, man. And I like to see that people still have that fire for Halloween. And that's what makes it important. You know what I mean? That's what makes it shows the younger generation, these 7, 8, 9-year-olds. It's creating memories for them. You know, how this memory with the coffin was created for you. You know, and I love that, man. I'm the crazy uncle at this point. I think, like, to my nieces and nephew, they probably think their aunt and uncle are both kind of fucking the weirdos. You know what I mean? The Addams family family members, but they'll always associate us with that, and I'm sure. They're gonna have memories in the future. In 20 years, when they're 30, they're gonna be talking about to their friends. You know, I have a crazy uncle who's loves jack-o'-lanterns for some strange reason. So
no, that's totally relatable. My nieces and my nephew, that's the same way here. Like they know me as the Halloween uncle, and they know me as like the Ninja Turtle guy too, because I collect that kind of stuff. But like when Halloween season comes around, we do like a little thing in the backyard where I put my projector out. We watch whatever Halloween movie they want to watch, whether it's Halloween or if it's Trick or Treat or whatever, some horror movie. And that's one thing that we've kind of done the last couple of years. So I can totally relate to that.
How old are your nieces and nephew? How old are they?
So, Jesus, I'm horrible with this kind of stuff. But
my bad. My bad to put you on the spot, Grimey.
That one is for sure. My oldest niece is probably around 17.
Oh, perfect.
18.
So she can watch Halloween, Friday the 13th, and things like that. Oh, all right.
Yep, and she's totally into all that stuff.
Cool.
She's a very artistic human being, and like she likes to decorate and stuff like that for the holiday, and it's a lot of fun kind of passing that down to other kids.
Yeah. It's funny. My nieces and nephew, they're 10 and like she's about to be, the smaller one's about to be 9. So, you know, I've shown them, I've like snuck and shown them like clips on YouTube of like Freddy
check this
Krueger
out.
because my sister-in-law and brother-in-law are like, you know,
Would just not allow it.
they're the parents that are like, oh, you don't have to deal with them waking up at 4 a.m. scared because, so like one of my nieces is terrified of the witches, which with Angelica Houston. You know the
Oh, okay,
witches.
yeah.
She is terrified.
Yeah.
She's like, don't put the witches on. She's so scared of it, but loves Goosebumps. Like they all 3 of them love Goosebumps. They love the Haunted Mask. They always remember because I love the Haunted Mask and I've shown it to them. But I think they didn't want them to watch that because they were getting nightmares. But they're getting older. And it's like 10, 11, 12. That's, you know, all right. We'll play the original Halloween. Close your eyes when there's boobs, you know, and then, you know, so when the sex scene happens. So it's like you got to butter them up. But you have a 17-year-old niece, so it's like you can show them basically every horror movie, you know, that exists.
Yep, and she's totally into it, which makes it that much easier.
Yeah.
Like it's great when you're not like pushing it on someone and feeling awkward. Like, hey, please like this. It's more like, oh, you're interested in this. All right, well maybe you'll like this and this.
Yeah.
And it's a good time, kind of like reliving your memories and like passing it down to the next one.
That's a cool setup, man. Projector on Halloween, playing whatever Halloween film they want to watch. That sounds dope, man.
Oh, it is. It's super dope.
All right, Grimey, what's the next one? I can't wait to hear it. That was a great one about the your uncle in that coffin. I might have to build. You know, I've always wanted to build a coffin. They only make not build one, but like the cardboard ones that you can like put.
Oh yeah.
I would never build one out of wood, but I've always wanted one. I always wanted a cooler coffin. That's what I never got. One of those like inflatable ones that you can like put beer and soda in and stuff. Those are
oh
really
man,
cool.
those are super dope.
Yeah, I need to get one of those.
I've thought about building a coffin myself, honestly. I might maybe try to pull it off this year if I get time, but if not, there's always next year.
Grimey, if you do that, that must be documented and shared. So
oh, it will be.
If you build a coffin, I want videos, pictures. I want measurements.
You'll have it. You'll get it.
Dioramas of what the measurements are going to be, the struggles you have. You have to a whole documentary. Grimey builds a coffin for the Halloween season.
It's going down, man. It'll happen.
Do it, Grimey.
Sooner or later.
But yeah, Grimey, what's the next Halloween memory? Hit me with it.
All right, so this one, I honestly don't know why this one sticks out to me so much, but it's like one of those perfect Halloween like core memories for some reason. So I'm around probably three or four. It's like 1992, which kind of lines up to what I'm about to talk about. I don't think I was even in school or anything like that yet. I was like waiting for my siblings to get out of school. So we're in the car, me and my mom. I don't really know where the hell we're going. We're just driving around. It's kind of like dark, dreary. It's in the season, you know. It's like around October. The radio's playing, and they're pulling all the classics. You know, you got your Ghostbusters, the Purple People Eater. Jesus, it's early. And of course, like stuff like the Monster Mash comes on, and that's like the main one I remember listening to that day. And we're heading out to this surprise trip to McDonald's, all right? Pull up, we get a Happy Meal, and can you guess what this Happy Meal comes out in?
What it comes out in? 92. Is it a McBoo pail?
It's the green witch pail.
Witch pail
comes out in a green witch pail.
I knew it was one. I knew it had to be one of them.
It's a pail of some sort,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure this is the one that has the cookie cutter for the top of the
Yes.
lid. Yeah, so one of that green witch one. That one I actually have it sitting next to me over here. It's probably my favorite of all of them, and it's like the later version. It's kind of a little bit more detailed, I guess. It's not quite as minimal as the original
The cookie
ones.
cutter ones were dope. I don't have
Yeah,
any.
they're pretty sweet.
I don't possess any of those. Like, unfortunately, I had them when I was a kid. I don't know what happened to them, but I do miss the cookie cutter on top. Come on, McDonald's,
Right.
Bring those back.
And like at this point in time, when I get a Happy Meal, I want the toy. You know, like
Of
the
course.
toys is where it's at. But for some reason, this pail was just enough for me. I thought that was the coolest fucking thing, was getting a pail. instead of a toy. It just, I mean, come on, the thing stole my heart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, this thing's beautiful. So this is kind of the first half of this memory here. This wasn't like the peak of this day either. This is just the start of it here. Later on, when my siblings all came home, we end up going to this grocery store called Bilo. My mom used to work at it back in the day.
I think you've mentioned that too. I think you've mentioned that.
I'm sure I mentioned that at least once or twice.
Because I remember me and Dave were like, "What? I've never heard of that store before."
Yeah. So, and I had to do some digging to make sure this wasn't exclusive just to my area. I don't remember if I brought this up to you guys or not, but it doesn't look like it was just me, because there's Google images of this happening all over the place. Did you ever see them make like a haunted house kind of thing out of like pop cans, like boxes of pop cans before, where they would like build like a display in the middle of a store or anything like that?
So now when we say haunted house, do we legit mean like a haunted house with a scare actor, or like an advertisement that you can like walk through, kind of like what Spirit Halloween does, where they just build this facade and you just walk through it?
It's very similar to the second one. There's not like an actual actor
it's not
or
like
nothing in there. So
someone jumping out. There's one of the stock boys wearing a rubber mask, even though that would be amazing, jumping out at you.
Honestly, they could have done something like that, and that would have just elevated it. But no,
interesting.
This is legitimately just like a pile of boxes of pop cans stacked up to make like a rectangle shape or something. They put like a roof and everything on it. I do have a couple of pictures I'll send you here in a minute, just to show you what they look like and what I'm trying to talk about here. But I mean, as cheesy as this sounds, for some reason, this was like always the highlight of the area here. Like when you would walk into Bilo and see these little like haunted walkthrough things. They weren't any longer than like, I don't know, your basement or whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably like 20 feet long and like 5 to 8 feet wide. I don't know what the actual dimensions probably were, but this is around the same time when like the Universal Monsters and stuff were like big on Pepsi and Frito-Lay, and like I remembered seeing different standees and stuff being like in the beginning of those like little haunted walkthroughs and stuff. And I actually want to say that Elvira was one of them too, where she was like on the Barks root beer thing. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, so you'd walk into these little things and they might have like the little dismembered arm prop or whatever might be hanging from the top, or a couple of them like real cheesy blood splatters that are like made out of I don't even, they're like a plastic kind of see-through jello looking substance. But we would go there, hang out, and walk through there while my mom's grocery shopping, and it just felt extremely Halloween-y for some reason. It was just over the top. You would have like, the one that I remember specifically was like decked out in all kinds of webbing on the inside and on the outside.
Wow.
It just was really cool.
They went all out with, even though it's just kind of, you said pop or soda cases, like popped around. Like, that's interesting. So I don't think I've ever...
I'm going to look for this photo really quick. Just so I can
maybe
send it
in
to
New
you.
York City that wasn't a thing, is what I'm thinking. I don't recall ever going to a supermarket of any kind, even like a local one, not like a Pathmark or a Stop and Shop or whatever exists. I don't even think Stop and Shop was a thing in the early 90s, but I don't ever recall going through a little haunted house built. Oh, I'm looking at a picture of it right now. Yeah, interesting.
Dude. I have another one here, and it's a little bit better, but that's kind of the idea there.
No, I might have. You know what might have happened to me? I might have walked past them and not realized you could walk into them. Possibly. It's maybe because when you look at them, they're awesome. They do look like a soda display more than anything, but you could walk through that little door. Interesting. Very interesting.
Let me see if I can find this other one.
So when you walk inside, they would just hang up severed limbs and severed kind of like just body parts and fake blood. They wouldn't put
Oh
anything
yeah,
else
they would
in
deck
there.
it out real well and like just put like little
Interesting.
dismembered hands and stuff and just
Yeah.
super goofy stuff. But
It's funny you mentioned the Elvira cutout and the the Universal monsters being on display, and this definitely reminds me of that 100%. I have this really
Right.
short memory. I'll squeeze in between while you're finishing your
yeah.
thought here. So I remember. So I lived in the Bronx, New York, when I was till I was about maybe 10 years old. And then I moved to Queens,
Okay.
and this is kind of where I've been for the most part ever since.
I just want to stop
Yeah.
you. I feel like you can just fight people. Can you fight people? Have you ever fought anyone? It just sounds like it's such a hard thing to be told that like, hey dude, I grew up in the Bronx. I was 10 years old. Like what? You did?
Yeah, dude, I'm a pretty tough guy. I'm a New Yorker through and through, so there's like nothing. Like we joked around. I forget. I think Manny and I recently were joking around because I'm like, all right, we have a lot of listeners that are not. A lot of our listeners are not from New York. A lot of them are from California and other states. And I'm like, are we two dudes that have thick New York accents and just don't realize it?
It's there, dude. It's there.
I don't hear it, but I know there's people that probably do. So yeah, when I was a fucking tough kid. I know everyone hears the Bronx and they're like, oh, listen, man, the Bronx was a very different place in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, there were terrible areas, but I didn't grow up in, like, where I lived was not a bad area. Now, where my grandma lived, okay, it was a little rough, but I still do. I've got, and you know what? That reminds me of a memory that I will get to later. This little conversation brought back a Halloween memory that I will talk about a little later that I believe I did not ever mention on the show. But yes, I grew up in the Bronx, like I was saying, till I was about 10, and there was a supermarket, and this was the off season of Halloween.
Okay.
This was probably like maybe the summer, maybe spring, March, April, May, around that time. So Halloween was coming, but it was several months away. And
Okay.
I vividly have this strange kind of quick memory of just walking in with my mother. Obviously you're a kid, so you're looking at the cereal aisle, you're looking at the candy, you're looking at all the stuff that you want, that your mom's like, you can have one, not all. You can have one item. And she's probably just buying something quick that she needs to make dinner or something. And I remember seeing an Elvira cutout. Now, I had seen them before on display during the Halloween season. They had her next to whatever, root beer or Coors Light or whatever, because she bounced around between beer and soda or pop in your case. She bounced around between, advertising for either company. And what ended up happening was I feel like, all right, so I'm in the store, and I look up, and I think most supermarkets had this. Maybe this was just in New York, but there was like a little window where the manager, I guess, could poke his head out. Like, you go upstairs one flight, and he could poke his head out and look out this little window to kind of see what's going on. Keep in mind, this is like when I guess security cameras were VHS tapes and stuff like that. And for some strange reason, I was enamored by this the entire time I was in the supermarket. They took that Elvira standee and put her face at the window. So it was just Elvira's face looking out this little window in the supermarket. So, and again, this goes back to like obsession with horror, obsession with Halloween. I remember the entire time I was in that supermarket, I don't remember what I bought. I don't remember what my mother got. I don't remember the rest of the day. But I vividly remember that Elvira face poking out of that window, just staring at everyone in the supermarket. And I was probably the only person looking up at it. And I was just obsessed by just this weird, like, I don't know why I enjoy, like, it just, it struck a chord with me. And I guess, again, that's why I'm obviously obsessed and love everything Halloween and horror related, because stuff like that stuck with me. Fucking weird memory that I wanted to share here that came out of nowhere. But I'm looking at this second image here. Dude, this looks fucking amazing.
This one here is a lot more what I'm used to seeing here. Is this image. Just fucking unreal. I mean, this is exactly what it looks like.
Dude, this entire haunted house you're showing me is literally made up of A&W boxes, cases of soda, and Sunkiss.
And I love that they have the little door here. It's like made out of the.
It's like a tablecloth.
I know a lot of this stuff is tablecloth. It's like has that plastic garbage bag feel to it.
They
have that in the door, and they have another one for the window. Like, dude, this is it to a T. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And the fucking cobwebs everywhere, just decked out in the coolest way. And I mean, that's a long display there. You know, it's not.
So some work went
super
into this.
Small.
Some work.
Someone.
Yeah.
And it just makes me wonder, like, how many of these were they like, oh, well, we run out, we're gonna have to just start dismantling this haunted house and sell them. I'm just curious, like, what was the thought process through this, and how did they make it work? And it just looks like a ton of work.
They probably leave it up and just take all the cobwebs and shit off of it and just allow people to buy. What's funny is you don't ever see this much soda in a supermarket anymore. I can't think of the last time I saw this much root beer. Mm-hmm. I love root beer, but I don't know when was the last time I've seen this much root beer on display. Now, to go back to your memory with this monstrosity, and I say that in a good way. That's a good thing. Were you scared to walk into it? Were you like a little bit like shook?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, honestly, it's true. Like I remember the first one I walked through, and it was this time. Okay. My brother was in there. And my he's a little bit older than me, about 5 years older than me. He would like hype it up like it was the scariest fucking thing. It's like, oh, you don't want to go in there. There's zombies and stuff in
Freddy
there.
Freddy Krueger is actually in. This is where he lives. He lives inside the soda aisle in the supermarket.
Exactly. Like, it terrified me to walk in this thing. But I remember going in like just a little bit and being like, nah, I need to get out of here. But I mean, this is like the store my mom worked at. So like we were always going there for groceries, and like she'd go there to like pick her check up or whatever, like just random shit like that, constant going there and back and forth. And so I had my opportunity once or twice to do it by myself, and it's just one of them things that really stuck with me.
I could picture little Grimey hyping himself up to walk through a haunted house made up of just soda cases of root beer and Pepsi.
Yeah.
like all right.
Absolutely, man.
You're like 9. You're like, I can do this. I can do this.
I got this, man.
I got this. And then you walk through it, and you probably walk out, and you're like patting yourself on the back. Oh, there was nothing in there.
Good job, little buddy.
Little Grimey, just all that was in there was fake severed arms and legs, and maybe like really shitty Halloween cutouts that we all love now, but at the time didn't appreciate as much. We were like, these are nothing. Dude, I don't remember walking through any of these. That's crazy.
Oh man, it's upsetting because I feel like it must have been like a I don't even know, just like wherever you grew up in, I guess. It must just be like a regional kind of thing where some places did it and other places did not. Like, I could totally understand it from like the point of view of maybe the Bronx wasn't like the best place to do it.
I don't think anywhere in New York City was probably the best place to do it at any time. That's the one place you don't want to walk into. You got fucking Larry, someone's cousin is hanging out in there fucking rolling up a joint or some shit.
Who's in there? Is that Freddy Krueger? Nah, man. Fucking Mikey's in there rolling a doob.
Mikey's on his fucking break right now. He's fucking rolling a blunt that he's gonna smoke on his break. Dude. So it's funny because, even the city, even New York City, all the boroughs, Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, maybe upstate or Long Island, Nassau County, you could have seen, because, I even will talk to like Dave or Manny, who are a little bit older than me, only a couple of years, who both grew up, Manny grew up in Queens. Dave grew up in Long Island, which isn't far. You know what I mean?
Right,
Manny and I are both, he was in Queens his entire life, and I was in Queens for like literally 3/4 of my life. And even in the early 2000s, like late 90s, early 2000s, when I was here, I got here on the mid 90s, I got to Queens. And, I was in Woodhaven, which is a lot of families. So stuff like this they had like a town haunted house. Like they built a little haunted house in Jamaica Avenue, which is an avenue literally not far from where I live now. And they did stuff like this. So I don't think it's a regional thing. I just think it's something I never came across my entire
Just
life.
kind of missed it.
Yeah, I missed it. Now, the displays, I vividly remember seeing the Elvira standees. I just told my story of seeing one, not even during, like, it was off season. It wasn't even during the Halloween season. And I remember seeing those and the Dracula cutouts and things like that, and all the boo pails and all that stuff from McDonald's. I saw all this stuff, but never saw this. Really weird. Yeah. Never had an opportunity to walk through one of these bad boys, and I'm quite envious of you, Grimey, that you were able to fucking see this. Yeah, man. Yeah, I definitely don't see this being built in the Bronx. The Bronx, hell no. It's like Escape from New York over there.
Yeah, I could understand that.
No, if there's any Bronx listeners, listen, you're my people. I love you. I don't even want to go to the fucking Bronx now in 2023. So imagine. I can't imagine. Listen, Grimey. I'm allowed to say it. I'm allowed. Born and raised New Yorker, man. I could say it though.
Oh, go off, man. Go off.
I do not see these popping up in the Bronx in 1993 at all. I don't think anyone was playing this shit. They would put up They would put up decorations. I saw a lot of decorations as a kid. A lot of trick or treating. A lot of stuff. You know, in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. But yeah, I don't see these flying. A lot of theft was happening inside of these.
I could tell.
Someone was stealing a carton of fucking milk and some eggs and shit. They were like, put this in your bag inside the haunted house.
Hurry up
in the backpack as they walk out. So yeah, man. Listen, I'm sure in the suburbs in Pennsylvania and fucking Ohio,
dude.
And shit like that.
Middle of bumfuck down this way. They can get away with this kind of stuff. No one's causing nothing trouble or anything.
I'm sure there was some theft. I'm sure teenagers were going in there and stealing Oreos and shit like that. So, you know, come on, happens everywhere. So.
It was probably mostly me. And you know, these old supermarkets, they have them like big glass containers full of candy. I was just grabbing candy and going in there and scarfing it down.
Grimey,
I could see it.
You're from the Bronx in spirit. There you go.
In spirit, I'm there with you. I am.
Oh man,
I'm hard in spirit.
South Bronx, there you go. At heart, that's what Grimey was thieving like he's from the Bronx in 1993 or 94.
That's right.
Oh man. So speaking of the Bronx, we can talk about my brief. And again, I don't think I mentioned this on the show, possibly, but I might have not. If not, I'm going to tell you the story, Grimey. So I'm in my grandma's neighborhood, right? Okay. And this was the Bronx. For some reason, so you think of scarecrows. What do you think of? A farm.
What I think of when I think of scarecrows?
Just
yeah, farm kind of.
Farm, autumn. You know, you think of like haystacks, haunted houses, or you think of, you know, a scarecrow in the haunted attraction way where they're come to life and they're evil scarecrow like Dark Knight of the Scarecrow and like Scarecrow's that great movie from the late 80s. So in the Bronx, for some reason, and this was during Halloween time, this was the Halloween season in the like early to mid 90s. So my grandma lived in a neighborhood. I was there a lot, never saw anything terrible. I heard it was kind of rough. Again, it was the Bronx in the late 80s, early 90s. I have a lot of nostalgic memories in that neighborhood. All good, not bad. So this is one of the good ones. And this goes back to me being enamored by kind of, you know, spooky shit. You know,
I love how you're talking up the Bronx. You're like, I have a lot of memories with the Bronx. All good. You're not really selling it so well. They good.
Listen, man, if any of the listeners are not from New York and you're from other states, I'm sure you've heard a lot of negative shit about the Bronx. And there's not a lot. Listen, I have a lot of good memories in the Bronx, and this is something I found kind of just interesting when I was there a lot in the early 90s. So yeah, so it was a Halloween season, and I know I've talked about my love of the bootleg Jason bootleg hockey mask they sold, and they still to this day sold. Dave's talked about it. I know you love it, Grimey. You love a classic bootleg Jason mask.
Absolutely.
So for some reason there were a lot of bodegas in my grandma's neighborhood. Obviously, a lot of families as well, and there was this one store up the hill, and I always called it the store you don't want to go to because there was always one or two characters hanging out in front. God knows what they were doing. But one morning, you know, I wake up with my grandma and we go go get like breakfast or something in the neighborhood. And we're walking and I notice on a light pole, because, you know, here in New York, we've got these giant street lights that hang over the streets and stuff. For some reason, someone hung a dummy from one of these walls, fully decked out with pants, shirt, pair of Timbs, because of course it's New York. You got to have the Timbs on the dummy.
You gotta have the Timbs.
And a bootleg Jason mask hanging. Now, it wasn't hanging like a lynching or anything like that.
Okay, see, that's where I thought you were going to go with it.
It was like a scarecrow. Like, it had its hands up. And it was, dude, it was a dummy. And I love how they added the bootleg Jason mask. So someone, for Halloween, for some fucking reason, it looked like a person was just hanging out up there. And they stuck this Jason mask. And me, being the little weirdo kid that I was that loved horror and loved Halloween, I was obsessed with it. Dude, and this dummy stayed there for months. Halloween came and went. Christmas came. That shit was up there for months, to the point that I think it started to like kind of decay and fall apart. Like,
that's dope. That's kind of
dope. The boots fell off of it. The pants fell off of it. And at one point it was just like a torso. And it was eerie looking. The first, I'm like, why did they do this? So even in the hood, they've got love for Halloween. This was not like a gang thing. This wasn't like a kind of weird lynching, strange thing. Like this.
I was gonna say, it was like, man, so like they hung this guy up by his neck or what? No. That's cool.
They its arms were out. I believe it was holding like one of those like really shitty Halloween sickles too.
Oh, nice.
And then a bootleg Jason mask, and it was just fucking hanging there. And I sometimes think, I'm like,
cool.
If it was 2023 and someone did that, that shit would have been taken down. Like,
it wouldn't fly.
In a snap. It would have been gone the same day. I love how it was able to stay up for months. They were able to keep the fucking scarecrow dummy hanging from the street light. He just sat there for months. And in that neighborhood, I remember kids trick-or-treating. I went trick-or-treating there. And all the stores gave out candy, all the people in the building, a lot of families, man, and they always celebrated. And even if, the shady characters at the bodega up the block that you don't want to go to are the people responsible for hanging the dummy, even they had the Halloween spirit that year and wanted to kind of entertain the neighborhood with this Jason Voorhees scarecrow dummy hanging from the light post. And I'll always remember it, man. It's a memory I'm sharing here on my podcast. And it happened in the Bronx.
That's a good one.
It happened in the Bronx.
That's good.
It happened in
my
the
only
Bronx.
My only question is, how many pairs of shoes were hanging around him?
It's funny, I've had this conversation with my wife because you don't see it that often. It's always when you watch old movies, and you see shots of New York City. And you like more of the urban areas, you see like the sneakers over you don't see that often. As a kid, I did see it a lot, but not as much as you'd think, compared to like what you'd see probably in other neighborhoods. The neighborhoods I lived in never really did that. Every now and then you'll see a pair of sneakers hanging off of like the electrical wire.
Electric wire, we got that around here too.
Everyone
I don't know
does
if it's like dudes selling meth or if it's just kids being dickheads or what, but yeah.
Well, I believe
either would surprise me.
I believe, and I don't know if this is true, it's supposed to like symbolize if you left the neighborhood, you leave your sneakers, and
something like that.
It's something like that. There's also a funny thing, and this is a tangent I want to share, and I learned this recently. Did not know this. Speaking of shoes, this has nothing to do with Halloween or horror or the Bronx, but I didn't know this. Now, we've talked about it. Derek had me on your show to talk about amusement parks, about Universal Studios a while back. I'm a big fan of the Jaws ride that used to exist in Orlando. Big fan, been on it hundreds of times. R.I.P. Jaws the ride no longer exists. Fucking Harry Potter took its place. But I didn't know that because the ride has these skippers that are the tour guides of the boat. Okay. So you've got the skipper. They kind of drive the boat, even though it's on a track, but you don't know that. And the shark attacks the boat. They have a gun. They try to kill the shark. Yada, yada, yada. Go on YouTube if you've never written this ride. Watch the YouTube video. It's amazing. So apparently, and I read a book about the attraction recently, when a person that's a skipper either quits or moves on in their career to become a manager or something like that in the amusement park, in the resort, they leave their shoes, or left, I should say, because the ride no longer exists, left their shoes in an area on the ride. And maintenance people would have to go and remove them because it would fuck up the illusion, the ambiance of the ride. So I thought that was interesting. You mentioning kind of people leaving shoes. I thought that was really interesting that they did this even on an attraction, like on a ride. And
that's wild, man.
Yeah, they were like, oh, people like in this book I read, they'd be like, oh, the guy that wrote the book would interview these people that were ex-skippers, like, oh, did you leave your shoes on the ride? And some of them be like, yeah, I left them in the dock, or there's like a scene where you're indoors in this boating, I guess, house or fishing house, and they would leave it in there. So yeah, leaving shoes. They did it. They even did it on the Jaws ride. So I thought I'd share that here if you didn't know that, for any amusement park enthusiasts. And it goes back to nostalgia and kind of Halloween, even though it's Jaws. So hey.
Wait a second, folks. That ain't Flipper. That's a shark. I think he's looking for lunch, and I think George is on the menu. Hey, George, buddy, get out of the water, huh? Help! Oh, George, don't go. Well, George had a lot of guts. There they are. Oh.
So those were Halloween Memories Part 4. Grimey, thank you for sharing those glorious, spooky memories.
Oh yeah, always happy to share. This was a blast. I really enjoyed doing this, and I hope to do more in the future, man. This was fun.
You're not going anywhere, Grimey. You're not going anywhere. Where can people find you and the Leftover Pizza Podcast?
So you can check us out over on Instagram. That is at Leftover Pizza Podcast. We share all kinds of good stuff over there. You can check us out online on our website, leftoverpizzaclub.com. I think I messed it up last time I said this. I only said leftoverpizza.com. It is definitely leftoverpizzaclub.com. You can listen to us on basically all the streaming platforms right now, wherever you get your podcasts.
And be sure to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Haunted Hangover. Head over to hauntedhangover.com to check out our Patreon page for extra bonus spooky content. And as always, remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Catch you guys later.